Okay, so I normally stray away from like politics, that sort of thing, and this is gonna be as close to politics as I'm ever gonna get, and throughout my entire channel, unless something happens and I just kind of have to talk about it. But basically, this is gonna revolve around something else that I kind of don't like to talk about because it's like a dead horse at this point. Violent video games causing violent people, that sort of thing, that whole debacle, that whole debate, whatever you want to call it, that whole argument. I don't like to talk about it because it's been talked about to death, and it's the same thing every single time. Some random old dude or some random old woman is like, oh, violent video games are the cause for violent actions among people and stuff like that. I'm not going to say any of these actions, but violent video games cause violent things or whatever is what these people are always saying. And then obviously that's not the case. There's been countless studies after studies after studies that have disproven this to such extreme lengths. I would definitely, if you want to get more into the whole war against video games kind of debate, I would recommend the Actman's video about the war on video games. It's about 40 minutes long, but it's definitely worth a watch because you really get the idea of the whole history of the whole violent video game media and everything like that, and how everyone's always talking about that it's bad or whatever, but then obviously it's not bad and no one actually believes it's bad other than I guess these politicians or something. I don't really know, but anyway, President Trump has finally said something about violent video games, and I just feel like I got to talk about it. I don't know why. But basically, he said, and this is his quote, he said, "It is too easy today for troubled youth to surround themselves with a culture that celebrates violence. We must stop or substantially reduce this, and it has to begin immediately. Gruesome and grisly video games that are now commonplace must be addressed to stop the glorification of violence in our society." That's what he said. He said that gruesome and grisly video games that are now commonplace must be addressed to stop the glorification of violence in our society. Now, I honestly completely disagree with this. This is the dumbest thing ever. Like I said at the beginning of the video, this has been the debate forever. Video games cause violence, and then everyone that's actually intelligent is like, no, that's dumb. That doesn't make any sense, and there's no connection between them or whatever. It's kind of like a long time ago, back when TV was kind of new. People would blame TV for being evil, and that would rot your brain, and that it was causing violence, and yada 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 yada. And then there was the whole newspaper thing that came out like a long time ago. People thought that was the dumbest thing ever. People thought that was terrible and that was going to ruin people's minds or whatever. Then smartphones came out. People thought that was dumb. That was going to ruin people's brains. That was going to make people violent, yada, 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 yada. It was a scapegoat. And now it's video games. And video games have kind of been there side by side with this stuff for a while. But I think it's at this point now where video games are almost the only scapegoat left. And for whatever reason, I don't know why. I just can't conceive of it. I can't comprehend it. I don't understand. But for some reason, people are not they're always going to something else to blame instead of the person that did it, or the things that happened in that person's lives that may have affected them psychologically, that would have actually affected them, not something like a violent video game. Because think about this for a minute. So basically everyone, I'm not gonna say everyone, but a very, very good majority of people have played very violent video games. The most Grand Theft Auto 5, for example, is a game that has made more money than any other form of media combined. It has made more than movies. It has made more than music. It has made more than other games all combined. And it is considered the most violent video game. Obviously, in this game, you're this gangster kind of guy. I don't really know what to call you. You're doing stuff with drugs. You're shooting innocent people. You're blowing things up. All that sort of thing. That's happening in Grand Theft Auto 5 all the time. And tons and tons of people play this. Obviously, tons and tons of people play this because, like I mentioned, it is one of the most highest grossing video games of all time. I think it's actually at like number 3 on the most downloaded game or something like that, right behind Tetris, which is right behind Minecraft. So all these violent video games are so insanely popular, yet when you go down to it, all these, I'm not going to say the word, but all these violent events, they don't equal to the amount of gamers that there are. There's no correlation with that. it's insane. I don't know. I can't comprehend it. I can't comprehend how people are connecting these two and doing whatever. So anyway, moving on. This other guy, the sociology professor Whitney DeCamp of Western Michigan University told Digital Trends, which is where I'm getting this information from. They said it is the underlying interest in violence, which likely predates exposure to violent games, that seems to be the real cause. They also added that racism appeared to have a major factor in at least one of the recent violent actions. If we are looking for something to change to try to prevent future tragedies, these seem like areas with far more potential for effective change. So obviously this person is basically saying, hey, look, all these violent actions, they predate exposure to violent video games. Video games haven't been around forever, but guns and weapons have been around forever. Violence has been around forever. Just look at the old, I was going to say Old West, but it wasn't actually as violent as you think it was. Just look at, like, back in the day, there was like gangs all over the place. There was bandits all over the place, stuff like that. It was kind of insane. Things were violent. Things were kind of trying to be built up, and people didn't like that, so people were kind of rebelling against it in a way. There was all kinds of violence. There was stuff like World War I, World War II, Vietnam War. All of that happened before video games, and those are the most violent of actions. And those things happened because of other reasons. They didn't have anything to do with video games. Yet, for some reason, I can't help but think if World War III broke out, people would blame video games somehow. But anyway, in past studies, researchers have found that individuals serving time in violent crimes are less likely to play video games than the average American. The number of Americans who play video games is astronomical, with about half of adults doing so, which is what I mentioned earlier. Tons and tons of people are playing it. Anyway, several of the most popular titles feature gun violence. These games are available in other countries, however, where extremely limited access to gun control remains the primary difference compared to the United States. So, yeah, this is what I'm talking about. Like, these video games are all over the place, but for some reason, it's only the United States that seems to have all of these mass violent actions or whatever, and that sort of thing. So, more than 165 million Americans enjoy video games, and billions of people play video games worldwide, yet other societies where video games are played as avidly do not contend with the tragic levels of violence that occur in the U.S. It's unclear what, if any, action President Trump plans to take against violent video games. His statement didn't hint at any specifics. Any move made to regulate violent games would likely need the support of Congress. Even then, laws of regulation that impact games would no doubt be challenged in court. The Supreme Court ruled in a California law that blocked the sale of violent video games to children was unconstitutional. That sets a tough precedent for any future law seeking to whatever. to restrict the sale of video games. In short, the president's statement almost certainly won't have an immediate impact on video games. Any laws made to regulate the sale of video games or the content in them would face multiple challenges. Placing blame on video games will no doubt make players and the video game industry uncomfortable, but it won't bar you from buying video games in the near future. So, they're basically trying to give you a slimmer of hope there at the end of that article. But basically, look, video games are technically protected under constitutional law. You can't really necessarily mess with them too much. Pretty much, they're hard to change anything with. There's many hurdles, like was mentioned in the article, and yeah, there's just I don't know what's going to happen, but I feel like since President Trump is President Trump, I feel like he is going to try his hardest to try and ban video games or regulate video games to some extent. And instead of working on how to get a gun and making it more difficult and going through processes to make it more difficult for insane people to get held of dangerous weapons, instead of working towards some way to help not get as many weapons out there into the hands of these insane people, or instead of trying to figure out what the exact root cause of these people's issues are and trying to tackle those, and instead of doing all of that, I feel like he's going to try and blame video games, which he is doing, but I feel like he's going to actually try and take action against it. I don't know what his plans are going to be, but I feel like he is going to try and do this, and I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know if he's going to be somewhat successful and video games are going to start being censored. If that happens, then honestly, I'll probably kill myself. I'm not really sure. I feel like he's definitely going to do something about video games, and it kind of makes me worried. Like the article said, it's going to be very hard for him to do anything about it. It's going to be hard for anyone really to do anything about it. But yeah, I'm very concerned. And here's the thing too, like I mentioned earlier, like people have proven time and time again, video games do not cause these violent actions to occur, these violent events to occur. So if this does somehow happen, this does somehow successfully eliminate all violent video games somehow, by some crazy, insane thing, it's not going to make a single difference. People are still going to do really insane shit and just commit these violent actions. And yeah, so yeah, anyway, that's gonna do it for the video. Yeah, that's gonna do it for the video. It's kind of weird here at the end, but whatever. Anyway, don't forget to like, subscribe, share, do those wonderful things, because when you do those wonderful things, you get access to wonderful content such as this. But that's not all. You also get to become wonderful yourself. Anyway, like I said, thanks for watching, however you watched, and don't forget to stay wonderful.